Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are, and welcome to our webinar, The Top 5 IT Modernization Capabilities You Need to Have, produced by Government Technology in cooperation with Software AG. My name is Bob Woolley, Senior Fellow with Government Technology, and I'll be your host and moderator today. As usual, we have a few announcements and some housekeeping that we want to look at before we begin. First, this webcast is designed to be interactive, and you can participate in Q&A with us by asking questions at any time during the presentation. You'll just need to type your question into the Q&A text box area on the lower left side of the console and click Submit. If you would like to download a PDF of the slides for this presentation, you can do so by clicking the Slides widget at the bottom of the console. Also, during today's webinar, you'll be able to connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please use hashtag GovTechLive to connect with your peers across the Government Technology platform via Twitter. A recording of this presentation will be emailed to all registrants within 48 hours. You can use the recording for your reference or feel free to pass along to colleagues. At the close of the webinar, we encourage you to complete a brief survey about the presentation. We'd like to hear what you think. If you're unable to stay with us for the entire webinar, would like to complete the survey as much as you're able, please click the red survey widget at the bottom of the screen and launch the survey. Otherwise, it will pop up once the webinar concludes. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers, and if you're experiencing any media player issues or have any other problems, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the Help button at the bottom of the console. Now let's move on to the presentation. Today, we're privileged to have several speakers. Pamela Schwartz, who has extensive experience, more than 20 years as a database administrator with the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, extensive experience with Software AG products, more than 25 years, and has really done some interesting work with a modernization project for the DMV. We're also privileged to have David Taylor, who is currently the Vice President of State, Local, and Provincial Solutions for Software AG, where he serves as market strategist and subject matter expert for government practice. Dave brings more than 30 years of experience in Florida state government as a prior CIO and CIO of a number of different organizations within the state of Florida. Our other speaker is Bob Jeffcott. Bob is a principal systems engineer for Software AG. He has been with Software AG for more than 20 years. He has extensive background in state and local agencies, both as a technical account manager and senior consultant. He's worked with a variety of platforms from mainframe to Linux, Unix, and Windows. And my name is Bob Woolley. I'm the former chief technical architect for the state of Utah, and I've had a lot of interesting opportunities with modernization projects. Now, our agenda today, I'll start with a preliminary presentation with these introductions. Then we'll move to Software AG, an overview to Virginia DMV, and Software AG, an in-depth look, and then the audience Q&A. You will also, from time to time, see us using some polling questions through the presentation. Please take a moment to answer these questions. It will give us information about you and will give you information about the audience. So let's begin. Here's our first polling question. Do you have an integration solution chosen or have one currently in place that meets your needs? Looks like we've got about 50% of you that do and about 50% of you that don't. That's fairly evenly split. Now, to give you some background, I'm going to make a few general observations on IT modernization. I've had the opportunity of working on a number of different modernization projects, ranging from total software rewrites to wrapping to enterprise service bus implementations. My current project is a large project breaking monoliths up into microservices, so I've kind of seen a range of things. There seem to me to be some really important drivers for modernization that really impact everybody, whether you're government or private sector. One is the ability to reuse services. the ability to share information, building and managing a self-service application for your customers, improve streaming analytics, and improve reporting. These are big issues. Effective use of agency big data resources. We're just beginning to see that come on the horizon now across government, but vastly rapid growing area. Improve customer interactions, ability to deliver on diverse customer computing platforms. Many of you have noticed your customers are coming into government websites on many, many platforms. I think the city of Utah tracked over 900 at one point in time, and they all expect everything to work. Improved application data security, improved total cost of ownership and related ongoing costs, and then just plain redesign opportunities to improve process efficiency for our customers. Now, there's some modernization concepts that I think are kind of important. Some of these are really common sense, but they're probably worth going over quickly. First, what are our goals for software modernization? Why are we even doing this? After all, if it's working, why should we mess with it? But there are service and value opportunities, improved compliance opportunities, the ability to future-proof our application environment, the ability to improve our customer focus, and create a better experience for our own internal staff. There also are some obstacles. Some of them are large. One is planning. One is really understanding the changing needs of customers. The ability to transform and perform simultaneously. It's always hard to do what you're doing every day and then create something new. And then just a willingness to adapt and change processes. One of the big things that I've observed from every modernization project I've been involved with, and if this I'm sure will come up multiple times today as well, you need to understand the economics. What is the level of effort required to modernize an application environment? There's labor, there's process, the technology. The big one, how well do we understand our current costs? I can't overstate the importance of that one. What are the key modernization migration cost considerations? What are the modernization service and value opportunities? And then what are the modernization options? You heard me mention at least 4 different patterns. There are a lot of different ways to get there, so it's well to understand what your choices are. Now our next speaker will be Dave Taylor, and Dave, I'll now turn it to you.
Great. Thank you all for joining us on this webinar. In the years since I was the state CIO in Florida dealing with these issues, the modernization challenge has evolved from simply updating application functionality in the platform to the pursuit of a much richer digital business integration. Now, by digital business integration, I mean repositioning the target app from an isolated entity to one that is fully meshed into the digital business of the organization. Many of you on this call are either planning for or in the process of executing a modernization strategy for one or more program applications. In my experience, the most common goal for any modernization project is reducing operational costs. But that shouldn't be your only goal. Our moderator covered possible goals and drivers in great depth, so I'm not going to go over that again here. But I do think that a truly successful modernization project is one that would align your IT goals with your agency's programmatic goals, so that you enable better program outcomes at a lower operating cost. Once you understand all of your goals, the process of selecting which technologies and tactics are right for your agency can begin. So let me share with you some macro modernization strategies that I've seen and my perspective in each of those approaches. So first of all, you can always do nothing. Depending on the application and its function within your organization, sometimes the best strategy is just leave the application in place and focus on what you can do to reduce maintenance costs. Remember though, it won't get any cheaper or easier to maintain legacy applications by doing nothing. With an aging government IT workforce, finding staff to work on these old applications will also become increasingly problematic. Next, you can try screen scraping or using a code converter tool. While these are low-cost methods and for that reason very appealing, they do not result in any significant modernization of a business application. And in my experience, code converters often generate code that's very difficult to maintain, which can increase your ongoing costs even dramatically. So another common strategy is to lift and shift. I see a growing number of agencies that are looking to rehost legacy systems by moving applications from one technical environment to another with no or very little change to the code. The focus here is on cost and infrastructure complexity reduction, and it's a very successful strategy if that's your primary goal. However, you should understand that you can't just lift and shift most applications into the cloud. They'll probably need to be refactored or redesigned to work best in the cloud model. The next strategy I've listed here is wrapping. Now, this approach takes the legacy system as it is and focuses on wrapping it with service layers that can then plug into a service bus. This approach enables greater interaction with other systems, allows for web and mobile development, and offers a generally improved user experience. This architecture also promotes reuse and agile high-level process changing. Another frequently used technique is to wrap one or more systems with a modern user interface, which masks the idiosyncrasies of each system from the end user. Wrapping makes sense for agencies seeking to extend the life of the legacy systems while offering increased digital functionality. I've seen this strategy used with great success. However, if the legacy system has fundamental technology issues, wrapping may not be practical. Finally, migrating to a COTS package or rewriting the application. While migrating a legacy application to a new COTS package or rewriting it in-house, that's a very common strategy. It's also the most risky and the expensive modernization option to pursue. Most IT project failures fall into this category. For this reason, I recommend caution when using these strategies. However, there's two notable exceptions. First, if your goal is to migrate to a COTS or cloud solution, and your program area is willing to change its processes to match those of the new application, I say go for it. Project failure rate is directly related to the degree that the COTS package or the SaaS application has to be modified to meet those programmatic needs. Secondly, I would only recommend rewriting a legacy application if the goal is to migrate its functionality onto a strategic in-house digital business platform. If you're interested in learning more about why a digital business platform for government is a better strategy than an application-centric approach that's been historically used by governments, just Google digital business platform, or you can go to the Software AG website for a much more detailed explanation. So my final advice on modernization to you is simply picture what your application portfolio would look like if it was right, then develop a systems lifecycle plan that moves you incrementally towards that target. The two questions I ask CIOs as I travel are, what would your systems portfolio look like if it was right? And then I ask if they have a lifecycle plan for their applications that guides them to getting there. The answer is usually, I don't know, and no. The purpose of a lifecycle plan is to understand what applications need to be retired, refactored, merged, and acquired over time, with the goal of reducing the number of applications needed, reducing IT environmental complexity, and lowering the cost of application maintenance. The risk here is, without a comprehensive plan on how all of your old and current applications will move forward, your modernization efforts will just be replacing old legacy systems with new legacy systems. In my experience, successful agencies are the ones that choose to follow a methodical yet flexible modernization framework to achieve transformational change throughout their organization. And on that note, I want to thank you again for attending our webinar, and I'll turn it over to our moderator.
And we have another question for you. When do you plan on starting a modernization project? Looks like a number of you already have, and a number of you are still not sure. That's quite understandable. Our next speaker will be Pamela Schwartz. Pam, I'll turn the time now to you.
Thank you. I want to thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm hoping that the Virginia DMV experience in our modernization process can prove helpful to you in your endeavors. I've been asked to present one of our modernization projects, the conversion of our front-end process for customer service center staff from an database and natural front-end application running on Solaris servers to a web-based front-end system built in .NET and using EntireX Broker as our communication protocol. In order to fully understand what a large task the conversion for DMV was, I need to tell you a little bit about our business and technical environment. We have 75 customer service centers located throughout the state. They process all types of customer and vehicle motor carrier transactions. We also process work for other agencies. One of our most recent integrations was with the Department of Health, and we can print birth certificates and death certificates, and we also have easy pass transponders at different locations. We have 9 training centers. We have 5 mobile units that are in big RVs, and they can process all transactions that a brick-and-mortar CSC can process. We have 4 DMV Connect units. These are mobile units in a suitcase, basically. They are used predominantly for visits to Virginia correctional facilities. The DMV assists prisoners in their transition back to work by helping to provide identity documents that will be required in order to get a job and open a bank account, that type of thing. We have 54 DMV Select locations. Those process a subset. There are contractors who process a subset of DMV transactions. They don't do any driver's license or ID card transactions. We have a very strong online and internet presence. Our very first internet transaction was implemented in 1997, and that was the license plate lookup to validate whether a particular license plate was available, and then you could place it on hold until you went into a CSC to purchase it. The second transaction was 2 years later, and that was our driver's license replacement and renewal. Ever since then, we've continually put more things online, and at this time we have over 36 online fee-based transactions, and we have a multitude of other transactions that are status inquiries and that kind of thing for the customer. So for our environment, our legacy system, mainframe application is the Citizen Services System, or CSS. The system was implemented in the early 1990s, and it served us well for more than 20 years with modifications based on user needs and many, many, many legislative mandates. CSS supports the core citizen services, driver's licensing, titling, registration, that type of thing, and any other transactions that are related to that, such as insurance monitoring or driver compliance, that kind of thing. The application is written in natural. The data is stored in a database. It's the database of record for all of the data that DMV collects, all customer, vehicle, and financial data. Our primary users include, of course, our own employees in the customer service centers, our internal work centers, state police, the select offices, other agencies like the Virginia Employment Commission and Department of Environmental Quality, Social Services, private citizens, and private businesses. So for our application and technical environment, our front end to the CSS system was CSCNet. This was it's an application. It was written in natural, and the related data was stored in databases in a Solaris environment. The CSCNet provided the interface between the master data of record on the mainframe and sorry, I'm not sure if I've lost my place. Anyway, in addition to the 16 databases and 16 complete regions, 5 broker regions, and 2 entire NetDash work regions that we maintain on the mainframe that are required to support CSS, we also maintained a Solaris server in every customer service center and training center, and we had a number of servers at headquarters. You can see on the slide, we had 98 databases on 93 separate Unix servers that supported the front-end application to CSS. So why would we want to modernize and how? Primarily, there were 2 drivers for us. The first was that there was limited functionality in the green screen applications. There were no bells and whistles for the user. Completing a transaction meant going through multiple screens, and sometimes the only way to know that there was a stop on the customer record or that you weren't going to be able to complete the transaction was once you got through those multiple screens. So there was no comprehensive view of the customer record. Everything was transactional based. The second was the cost of the CSCNet application. DMV developed the application running on, our developed application was running on unsupported servers. The last time I did an upgrade to natural was in September of 2000. We were unable to upgrade because there was really no longer, it had been so long since we had upgraded, there was no upgrade path available. It would have meant all new hardware, all new software, and basically one big bang approach even to the field offices to do an upgrade. In addition, we used Construct extensively in that environment, and some of the models, we had modified the models so much that over time some of the original models were no longer available. So it was really a very, very difficult thing. And because we were on these unsupported operating systems and we had very old hardware, everything was in danger of failing. And on top of that, we pay a bill. We have to pay for our computing services for the hardware, and because this was old hardware, it was considered legacy, and it cost us over $1.4 million annually for the legacy hardware charges. And this is for hardware that we owned when the partnership went into effect anyway, so we just kept paying over and over. So what do we do? At first, they tried the Big Bang approach. We had several very protracted efforts at trying to define every possible system change that was needed. We had many detailed requirements, definition meetings. We had an extended effort to document all the business rules. We went through all the natural code and pulled out all the rules that we had documented in there. We expended money on licenses and hardware for the new vision of the system. And we worked on integration efforts to try to make purchase software packages work. And the problem with this is that the size and complexity of the DMV applications, a large rip and replace effort just was not going to work for us. Our application is written in-house and it's completely customized to the driver and vehicle-related laws relevant to the Virginia DMV. There's just no COTS product that can be tweaked a little bit and put into place for us, and we can't freeze code. We are constantly making system enhancements and modifications to address user needs and legislative mandates. So what we did is we took a step back and we decided to refocus the modernization effort. DMV management called together a core team of developers, architects, DBAs, and talked about what we wanted to do to move forward. The DMV team asked for the opportunity to solution the modernization effort in-house rather than continue down the path of RFPs and contract staff making recommendations for systems that they didn't fully understand. The DMV staff wanted the opportunity to try to solve the problem. One of the things they quickly focused on was a front-end application that they had worked on and implemented in 2004, and this was the front-end, or it was actually the Select application is what they named it. The DMV Select was designed to process vehicle and registration transactions. There's no driver's license information in there. Again, the Selects are our contract people who handle transactions for us. What this web-based application did is it provided a GUI front end, and it removed the green screen processing for the license agents. We realized significant savings because the original green screens worked off of lease lines, and we were able to eliminate all of those lease lines because everything was now a web-based application. Select the front-end inventory that would have been in a customer service center on the CSCNet application, and the same thing here for the Selects, moved all that to an Oracle database. And what this did is it allowed for processing efficiencies. It increased the number of license agents from 35 to 54. It was easier to train users. The GUI is easier to use than the green screens, and it provided field-level help and drop-down menus, and keying time and errors were greatly reduced. So what they decided to do for our in-house systems, our customer service centers, is that the code base for the DMV Select, which is the external users, and MySelect, which is what they termed for the internal users, is the same. What we did is we took that base and we added the driver and financial and motor carrier and compliance functions to the Select application. Base functionality was already there, so it was easy, in quotes, to expand the application, easy being a relative term. It wasn't truly easy, but it was certainly easier than starting from scratch. We already had a base for it. What this did for us is it gave us help functionality for our users. They have search controls and drop-down lists. There's a lot of online reports that they can run. And it sort of gave us a comprehensive view of the customer. Instead of only being able to pull up a transaction at a time, you could sort of pull multiple pieces of data back and present it to the customer or to our CSRs at one time. And it improved user authentication and some authorization processes. We use Active Directory for authentication for the MySelect system. So the interfaces for this environment, we started with EntireX Broker. It's the primary interface between the DMV modernized environment and CSS on the mainframe. Reason for choosing Broker, we already use it extensively for all of our .NET applications to mainframe, all of our internet transactions, everything we do from the server world to the mainframe is done using Broker as our middleware. We were a little bit concerned about putting these 75 branch offices into the existing complete broker environment that we had. So one of the things that we did is we stood up new development and test and production environments for that. We established, in order to give us a little bit of load balancing, we set up one user ID per customer service center. The user IDs are logged on, as all of our internet process IDs are, at complete initialization time using the BMC control product with KOA scripts. There's a table system that we use to manage which CSCs process in specific complete threads. One of the things that we found is that the user IDs would pop into the threads in just whatever order they logged in, and that sometimes overloaded a particular thread, and so we basically we thread lock them with this table system, so we don't have several larger offices all going into the same complete thread. We log each user ID on 5 times. The first time is a monitor to watch the other logons, and then we use 4 different buffers for processing. So the monitor restarts the processes if it detects that they're not running. So that way we can make sure that we're always staying up. I didn't have a live demo for today, but one thing I wanted to show, this is the CSS, the old green screen customer inquiry screen. And you can see here, it's a little difficult to read. I mean, it's a standard mainframe screen. It's all courier-based. There's cryptic definitions for what's on the screen. No drop-down help available, and it only shows what data is available for this one customer on this one screen. This is just a basic inquiry. It doesn't tell you anything about what transaction they're there to do today or what they might need to do tomorrow. You come in for a driver's license renewal today. Well, it'd be nice if you realize that your registration is going to expire next week and you could take care of it all at one time. So this is the same screen that's done through our modernization effort. And the first thing you can see here is that there's a picture. So this is integrated to our driver's license ID process. So we go back and we go out and we pull back the pictures. So the very first thing is that the teller can tell whether or not the person standing in front of them is the person that is trying to do, is the correct customer. We believe this helps reduce fraud. The list of notices in the middle of the screen, it'll tell you that the customer has a bad check stop, so you can see right away. It's not any point in keying in a bunch of information or having them run a credit card only to find out that there's a check stop on it. In the middle of the screen, it says that there is a expired ID card since 2012, so you know this customer doesn't have a valid ID or driver's license right now because you can only have one, and if one expired, that means there's nothing else there. They haven't opted into e-Notify for email notifications, and there are more alerts that couldn't be displayed on this screen, so the customer service representative can just click on those options and it'll bring that information up for them. So we feel like it's more aesthetically pleasing, and it provides our tellers with more customer-specific information than what the mainframe screens were able to do. So for us, what's the future for DMV? We want to continue our efforts to move all of our work units to the MySelect environment. Some of our internal work units are still using the mainframe green screens. They're not using the front-end CSCNet application, but they're still going directly to the mainframe. We would like to complete a UI solution for all external users. We want to finish transforming the business logic from Natural to .NET. And we want to continue to use EntireX Broker as our middleware product of choice. It works great for us. I guess in closing, the thing I'd like to say is, I guess I'm a little bit defensive about mainframes. Not everything old is obsolete. Just because something's been around for 20 years doesn't mean that you need to get rid of it. Mainframe systems, to me, are the fastest and most reliable computing platform you've got. But we do have a technology gap. The mainframe knowledge base is aging, and they're not teaching. They don't have programs in the colleges that teach, COBOL and assembler anymore. It's difficult for companies to attract the young professionals because they want everything that's a drag and drop and click and here and everything is working. So we have to modernize to move forward. And to many companies, this just means moving off the mainframe. But that's a big step, and we just all have to find ways to modernize our applications until that migration can fit into your overall business plan. So that's the DMV perspective, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Pam. We now have another question for you. Do you have a streaming analytics solution? Looks like most do not, but a few of you do. So now let's move forward to our next presenter. This will be Bob Jeffcott. Bob, take it away.
Thank you very much. Today we're going to be talking about 5 of the top 5 IT modernization capabilities that you need to have. And I think Pam touched on a few of those as she talked about the DMV's modernization. One of the things over the life of your IT landscape, you have more than likely collected a variety of different IT technologies, whether it be ERP systems, COT packages, departmental solutions, homegrown built systems, data warehouses. You might have even moved into the Hadoop business intelligence area. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to transform that into the digital business platform that Dave Taylor had talked about. He also talked about, one of the options is ripping and replacing of this system, which can be risky. But the reason why those projects come along is because your current landscape makes it difficult to change. It's hard to manage different technologies, different releases. And we're going to teach you, but one of the things with that is that the landscape there does contain valuable information for your organization. It contains important data, business functionality, business processes. And we want to talk and turn it into that digital business platform using 5, while we say easy steps, they may not be simple and easy within a couple days, but they are important steps, and you can see quick and easy results from that. The first and the most important thing, and as Pam said that they did, is they leveraged their existing IT and business assets. They exposed those out as reusable services. And that is really the key. That is the first step, is to take all of those assets that you have, make them reusable, accessible, not only within your organization, but outside of your organization, which brings up the second event of sharing information and events across departments and agencies. One of the things you're going to see is as you start to take independent services and put them together, that typically creates an event. Today, that event may be something where like Pam had said, someone comes in for a renewal of their driver's license and then they have outstanding fines that they need to pay. So that renewal event actually triggered another event of paying a fine. And it's important not only within an organization, but across organizations to start to share that information. And the reason for that is not only to provide better service for your citizens, but really it can have an ROI for your investment. I think one of the prime examples is in the state of Pennsylvania. Their JNet system had a service that was accessible that would show whether a particular person was currently incarcerated, not only in the state, but the county jail systems. The Department of Labor and Industry, which was responsible for unemployment benefits, leveraged that interface to see if someone that was currently getting unemployment benefits was really eligible for them. If they were in a prison, they were not really eligible for those benefits. That simple integration, that simple sharing of information across agencies saved the state of Pennsylvania tens of millions of dollars, providing a great ROI. The next thing you need to be able to do is to provide the information, the improved information to citizens via self-service portals, whether those be delivered by the agencies, by the departments themselves, or exposed out as APIs so that other private entities can leverage those and provide those services. Everyone today is used to having a smartphone and communicating to various commercial entities via the smartphone apps. And government really needs to be able to take and embrace that as well. I travel extensively, and I use my smartphone to check in for my airline flight, to scan my boarding pass, to actually even check into my hotel and use my smartphone as a key to get into my room. I don't actually have to see a person anymore. So people today are really used to self-services. Once you expose those services out, you can now put those in a self-service portal, whether it be web, smartphone-based, app-based. The next step, and thanks for the leading question, is now that you have these events streaming across your IT landscape, you really want to start to be proactive rather than reactive with the streaming analytics. You can start to take those events as they cross through your process and take proactive steps rather than reactive steps looking backwards at a data warehouse or a business intelligence tool. And last but not least, in stealing a line from Field of Dreams, if you build this, they will come. And so what you really want to be able to do is to handle these newfound capabilities and this newfound popularity by leveraging big memory and big data. And let's take a look at each of these. And as you see, these aren't independent steps. They kind of blend together. So we'll talk about the path that we go down through this. So the first thing is to take all those existing IT assets that you have and start to service enablement. You're going to have to do that potentially in a multi-tiered approach. You're going to have tools that will access the data directly. Let's say it's something as simple as a status on a form. Other times, you're going to start to need to use the business logic associated with the application, like Virginia DMV did. They access that underlying mainframe business logic and expose that out as a service. And then there are some times when neither of those are possible. There's an old COBOL program. There is a complex program that has presentation logic, business logic, data logic, and integration points. Or it may be something that someone wrote and is no longer with the organization and no one else understands it. So you also need to be able to wrap that presentation logic out and deliver that as a service. So again, it's just this multiple quiver of being able to access data, business logic, and presentation logic out as a reusable service. And as you start to create these services, you're going to start to need to manage those services, both from a development and a runtime perspective. So you need governance to know what services are available, who's using those services, where they are in the lifecycle management, what versions they're at. And then when you start to look at the runtime governance, are the SLAs being met? Are you providing a safe, secure environment for those services? What versions, who can access what data? You may have one service, but different people can access different information within that service. So you also need that mediation. So as you create these services and you expose these services out, you need a registry repository, you need the ability to do mediation, and you need ability to expose those services out in a safe format and make them available to potential third-party other organizations in an easy-to-use manner. And how we do that, we start to hook these services together through an enterprise service bus. So you have the idea of those services, and those services can be either finely grained, doing something simple, like getting the status of an application. Or it could be something far more complex, like approving an application which may kick off 2 or 3 other processes. And the way you merge those all together and leverage those services is through a service bus, so that you can start to take services, whether they be from a mainframe system, whether they be simple database access, or whether they be part of a COTS. So I can take functionality that may cross several of my IT assets and produce those out as a business service and deliver it in whatever format's necessary, whether it be to a mobile application, to a website, to a B2B transaction, or to another organization via a web service. And a key part of why you want to use a service bus is that it gives you the things like infrastructure monitoring. As Pam said, one of the things they have to do is they have these services, they need to make sure that those services are always up and available. And again, to do the administration and management of those services, provide the security, but also to do that mapping and transformation. Obviously, you have a lot of disparate data sources in the back end. You need to be able to map and transform those into whatever the needed capability is. And really, one of the key parts of that is the ability, what we call future-proof. So, a few years ago, XML was the standard format. And then they formalized that into a more, a more standard format of SOAP enablement, of the simple web service. Today, with web applications, with mobile applications, REST is now a more popular delivery method. So if you hand-coded those, you would have to go back, and each time technology changes or each time a business requirement changed, you would have to go back and remap those. With a service bus, it's simply a click of the button, and now I want to expose it was a web service as now a RESTful service. And then the next step is you have those services available. You want to expose those out so that citizens can do more self-service capabilities. And again, it might be to mobile clients, it might be to web clients, but you also have that ability to just expose the service out as a standard API, and other organizations might leverage those APIs either in conjunction with other organizations' APIs or just to provide a service. You can see now there's smartphone applications that will alert you if a sexual offender moves into your neighborhood. All they're doing is leveraging available APIs that government organizations have made available to them. So again, it's another way to provide your citizens better services. And I know we didn't have a lot of people that were starting to use streaming analytics, but we did have a lot of people on the call that are in modernization projects today. So one of the benefits of that modernization, again, typically as you start to share data, as data moves across your organizations, across your IT assets, those are events, and those events can now be monitored, be measured. You can set up KPIs if something's taking too long. If maybe, as an example with Virginia, someone wants to register for a new driver's license, but they have outstanding fines. You can start to take proactive action based upon, these events as they stream across your enterprise. There's a couple different ways of doing it. One is the business dashboards. I can start to see real time how my organization's doing. Are my wait lines too long to renew my driver's license? Proactive alerts. Hey, your driver's license is coming up for renewal, but you have these outstanding fines. Why don't you go pay these first so that your driver's license renewal process is not hindered? And again, the visual analytics, that ability to look at large volumes of data in real time. That's important. It can start to allow you to make better decisions based upon real-time events. And one of the latest integrations with that streaming analytics is now the socialization aspect. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those are starting to be monitored by organizations, by agencies. You can blend that with your existing IT architecture to be able to take actions. Again, if someone's tweeting out that the lines at the DMV are too long, you can be reactive to that and say, hey, let's go put another person, let's go figure out why things are taking so long. So that is a new interface that you can leverage with your existing business information to take proactive, make happier customers, happier citizens. And last but very much not least is, if you start to build these things and you start to be successful providing that information out, your back-end assets may be starting to be stressed, maybe starting to be strained. You can start to put this information in big memory, start to leverage that. One of the best examples was when healthcare.gov went live and several million people decided that they were going to all check health, for health insurance the first day, and the system crashed. By putting in big memory, it alleviated that crush of people accessing the information and allowed them to move forward. So I think, the last arrow in your quiver would be to have that big memory so that your back-end applications, your back-end IT assets are not impacted by this new functionality. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our host.
Thank you so much. We have another question for you. First, would you be interested to learn how to extend your existing legacy applications to enable mobility, analytics, and citizen engagement? Take a moment and answer that. Well, we're not seeing a display on the screen for that one, but it'll be interesting to see what your answers are. They will be recorded. So now we're going to move to the live Q&A, and I think a few of you have questions you would like to ask our presenters. Now, I don't see a whole lot that have not been answered, so we've got a few questions here that are interesting. Let me direct one to Dave Taylor. So if a state agency decides they want to modernize, how do they communicate the business value to the stakeholders to make that happen?
Well, oftentimes, in my experience, that the business value for a project is communicated from actually the business itself, and so rarely, in my experience, does IT go looking for a modernization project. It usually comes to them because either the current system isn't meeting the business requirements, or they're having a hard time with using the system or training the system and so on. So. I'm not sure that's exactly what you want in the question, but the business requirements come from the program area, and in partnership with the program area is how we generally raise the awareness of the need to modernize the application with, like, the legislature, the executive branch offices, or at a local level, of course, it would be your local government. So it's a partnership on raising the awareness for the need to do the project.
Yeah, I think that covers it well. Another one for Bob Jeffcott. We tend, in state government and county government, we tend to do a pretty good job identifying user and functional requirements, but we don't always remember the quality attributes. How does doing a major modernization upgrade impact quality attributes or the customer experience?
Well, I think one of the things is that, as we talked about with the service enablement, is really you understand which of those business functionalities, which is the most important to be able to wrap and to expose out. Someone, whether it be business users, whether it be business analysts, know where that criticality is from a citizen perspective. So those are the ones that you first want to start to expose out and then deliver. Starting small and letting the feedback from the citizens guide you.
We've kind of alluded to lift and shift as a possible strategy. A number of people wondering, should my applications operate on premise or on the cloud? How do I make that decision when I modernize? We'd like to handle that.
I'll take a first stab at it. One of the nice things as technology progresses in the cloud, it's a decision that doesn't necessarily have to be made all at once. Parts of your enterprise can be moved to the cloud. Parts of it can be replaced by SaaS, applications as well. And by moving something to the cloud doesn't preclude you from potentially moving that back, or deciding to keep something in-house today doesn't preclude you from moving it out to the cloud. Honestly, with government, sometimes it is legislated. We've had customers that have said, hey, by law, I can't have this data off my premise. So that's probably one of the first deciding factors, is just from a legal and security standpoint, is that something that is permitted.
Okay, I don't see any more questions from the audience. Do any of the panelists have questions that you would like to ask? Well, that being the case, I'm not hearing a lot of questions. That brings us to the end of our hour today. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for joining us. Would also like to thank Software AG for sponsoring this webinar. Information from this webinar will be available, and you can get it from www.govtech.com/webinars. Be available on demand. If you have any questions or follow-up, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email is available, rdwoolley@gmail.com. And thanks again for your participation. It's been very helpful. Thank you.